Oh, shalom. Shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, the founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am thrilled and delighted and excited to be talking to our special guest in the neighborhood. He is an author, a critic, and over the past few years, also an impresario, whatever that means. This is a guy who had a really good idea. The idea was, hey, let's get some Broadway singers and we'll put them on a nice stage with a nice band, and they're going to sing songs from Broadway, but very specifically, each time we'll take a year or two in Broadway musical theater history, and we'll tell about that year, and we'll tell about the shows that opened that year, and they will sing the songs from those shows. This is, I don't know if it's a $1 million idea, but it's certainly been a successful and workable idea for this man who is on the telephone with us. His name is SCOTT SIEGEL, and we are delighted to have him in the neighborhood with us. Shalom, Scott. How are you doing?
I'm good. Shalom to you, Saul. How are you?
I'm all right. I mean, you know, I've got all these aches and pains and hernia problems and prostate problems. How are you?
Pretty good, thank you very much.
Well, actually, I make a joke about, well, not such a joke about my medical condition, but maybe the first thing to ask is, how are you doing? Because the New York Times did this whole story about you when you were recuperating from what, were you hit by a car or something, or what was it?
No, it was sort of a Steve McQueen moment. I had a major city bike accident. I broke my pelvis, and I was in the hospital for 19 days, and I have 4 screws holding the middle of me together. But
well, you know what?
I'm fine.
I've been married 37 years. That's more screws than I've been getting, I'll tell you. Little comedy there, right here in the neighborhood. So, but you're feeling well. I mean, do you feel like when it's cold, do you feel that in where the screws are?
No, I don't. In fact, I asked the doctor if I was going to have, alarms going off if I, went through a metal detector, and he said, nope, it's you're going to be unknown unless you tell him. I'm in good shape. Thank you.
Thank you, Mazel McGlick. That is fabulous. Now, you're also in good fighting trim and ready for what's going to be happening Monday night at Town Hall in New York City, which is going to be the latest iteration of Broadway by the Year. I told them what's in it, but what is this specific Broadway by the Year going to be about?
Well, the season of Broadway by the Year, you described Broadway by the Year very accurately for what it's been for the last 19 years, but this is the 20th anniversary season of Broadway by the Year, and so we're doing something to celebrate the 20th anniversary season. And so what we're doing is taking the last 20 years of Broadway history, during which time Broadway by the Year has been in existence, and breaking it into 4 different concerts, because that's the season of Broadway by the Year. There's 4 concerts. This is the first one on Monday, and each one is going to be 5 years running. So we're going to be 2000 to 2004 on this show on February 24th, and we're going to be honoring the songs that were either born on Broadway during that 5-year period or appeared in a revival, so that we can also honor the older music, which our constituency always loves. So we have, and in fact, out of 21 songs that are going to be in this concert on Monday night, 9 of them are going to come from revivals, and 12 of them are going to come from songs that originated on Broadway during those 5 years.
Does that speak to perhaps, I don't want to editorialize on this, but the fact that maybe a lot of the musicals that have opened on Broadway in the past 20 years are kind of shitty, and you need to go into the revivals just to have enough to do a full evening?
No, it doesn't really reflect that, but we wanted to make sure that the audience, which has usually come for the last 80 to 100 years of Broadway, wasn't stuck entirely in the last 20 years, because they enjoyed the music from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and so on. So we wanted to have some of that scattered through the show in each of the concerts, so that we'd be reflecting what Broadway by the Year has always been about, in addition to honoring and celebrating the 20 years that Broadway by the Year has been in existence.
So what's an example of a song or two from a show or two that you will be doing this Monday night?
We'll be doing, for instance, from that 5-year period, shows like Avenue Q, shows like The Full Monty, like that. But we'll also be doing revivals of things like 42nd Street, and oh my goodness, even this is going to be kind of fun and a little bit of a surprise, but because we're doing shows from the last 20 years, one of the things that we thought would happen, and has in fact in this, is that we would have somebody who was in an original show and singing a song that they originated on Broadway in that show. So we have Max von Essen, who's a Tony nominee for
Sunset Boulevard.
Paris, but
yeah.
No, he wasn't in that. He made his Broadway debut in Dance of the Vampires, one of the most famous flops of all time. But he got recognized for it. He was one of the few that survived the wreckage of that show, and he's going to sing the song that he originated on Broadway in that show called Sarah, which is actually a great song. It's kind of got lost in the shuffle because the show was so bad. But
it was pretty funny, actually. But okay, but that's good. And don't you have? Isn't one of the other performers on this Monday Tova Felcher, the Jewess?
Yes, yes, indeed. And she's a four-time Tony nominee. In fact, a 6-time Tony and Emmy nominee. So she's between movies, television, and theater, she's a triple threat. And yeah, she'll be singing from a revival of Gypsy. And it's a great honor to have her. She's one of the things we also wanted to do during this 20 years is bring people back who've been in Broadway by the year during the last 20 years and have had an impact on the series itself. So, and Tova's been in it before. It's very gracious of her to come back and perform in it again. Because believe me, we can't afford her otherwise. She's doing a very generous thing to be in the show.
So let's take it backward. We're talking with SCOTT Siegel. I want to talk more specifically about Broadway by the year, but let's even roll it backward. Did you love the theater from a young age? Was it much later? Because you were more of a movie guy, and it wasn't really until you met Barbara, your wife, that Broadway. Well, you do tell the story. Well, I can just start.
Well, you can Google it.
Yeah. That's why I have the tissues and the Vaseline. Yes.
Well, I was more of a movie guy, and Barbara was the theater maven originally. But I have so many of us have very specific memories of growing up with the theater because I grew up in a bedroom community in Belleville, New Jersey, and came in. I vividly remember seeing Fiddler on the Roof with my family, and a big watershed moment was actually a school trip in to see Man of La Mancha before it went to Broadway when it was in a tent downtown, and I was just completely knocked out. So I loved the theater. I just never saw a lot of it when I was growing up, just enough to hook me. But it was Barbara who really gave me my baptism. You know, when I came back to New York and we got married, we would go to the theater all the time. We became theater critics, and Barbara was chairperson of the Drama Desk nominating committee and on the nominating committee for a total of 18 years. So we saw about 300 shows a year, not counting my own. And so we saw everybody and saw everything, and so but by the time it came that I had the opportunity to do Broadway by the year, 20 years ago, I mean, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how I wanted to do it, and I knew who I wanted to have in it. So,
well, let me stop you there because again, I want to roll. I want to just jump right to the present so quick. I want to hear a bit more, especially since Dave, who is the producer and host of this program, has been a critic for many years too. Did you and Barbara end up co-writing or doing like a he said, she said review column at some point? Did you ever do that?
Yes, we reviewed. It wasn't a he said, she said, but because we both agree so much. But it was, but we've co-byline, a shared byline, and we wrote for everything from Show Business Weekly to Backstage to everything. We were on radio together. We did. So we were, and we continue to be columnists and cover the theater. We were doing that for more than 20 years, well more than 20 years, and so So yes, we've been writing about, and also movies. It's movies, theater, and cabaret for all of that time, and it's been quite a joy to do that together.
Well, what is the writing? What is the writing process when two people have to collaborate and work like that together? Do you sort of talk about it and then one person puts it on paper, or do you give her a topic and she does that, and you do your topic, and then you mush them together? What do you do?
Well, it started with books, really, because we've written 48 books together, and each project requires a different take on it. And for instance, when we did the Encyclopedia of Hollywood, which was a big 400,000-word opus, we would just sort of divide up. You take this, I'll take that, and we all wrote separate parts, of the book. When it comes to, and about half of our books were fiction, we've written a whole lot of novels that have been published, and that would be different. We would sort of divvy up. We would outline it together and then write separate chapters, and then we would edit and revise each other's chapters. So it was a process. But when we started doing this, people said that we would end up on the roof with machine guns because we would end up wanting to kill ourselves and kill everybody else. But it happened to not be that way, thank God. And we have this ability to finish each other's sentences, so it's a very close relationship, and I think it's kind of seamless. People can't see it in the books. They can't see one voice or another voice.
But you can tell. Can you each tell, if you were to pick up a book that you co-wrote 25 years ago, could you point to what she wrote, or is it seamless to you guys in retrospect?
Well, look, we remember what we fought over. In most cases, we can't remember writing any of it. But it seems like who wrote that? But for the most part, it's only certain moments that we can remember. Oh, that you did that, or I did that. But the vast majority of it just seems like we can't remember unless it's very recently.
Well, let me ask also, what would you say are her strengths as a writer versus your particular strengths as a critic and writer and novelist? Is there something she brings to the table versus something that you bring to the table?
I'm a more generalist. I'm more plot-oriented, and how does it all go together? And she's more meticulous on the details. So happily we complement each other's.
Well, I'm sure you must complement each other, because to just knock each other is not very nice. Kidding.
It works out well. It's just that we have our own strengths and weaknesses, and that's how we help each other make for better fiction and better nonfiction.
Now, did you have a creative college degree? I mean, did you go for the arts? Did you go for administration or stuff? Or where did you go and what did you do?
I went to Rutgers University, and I was an English major. Within the English department, there was film within it, so I studied film within the English department as well as English, and had a Rockefeller Fellowship to graduate school in American civilization. So it was American film, and I had a real interest in Western movies and on all that stuff. But which led me to actually write my first books, which were Western novels. The first 4 books I wrote were official regulation Westerns in the Louis L'Amour vein, and
Wow.
And I was so you know how actors will remember all the reviews. So as a writer, I remember my first review only, and it was mostly because it was used on the cover of actually the first 6 books were westerns, and the first 2 didn't have that, but I had a series called the War Hunter series that was published in paperback, and on the cover it said, "Siegel writes of a brash and brutal old West where good men die and bad men die faster. St. Louis Post-Dispatch." I'll never forget that.
That's pretty cool. But, so I have to ask you, where the hell do you find the time to write that? Maybe you guys have 48 books between you. Well, some of them are encyclopedic, about the American film and Hollywood and celebrities, and then just where the hell? I mean, do you spend 5-7 hours a day just at your desks writing?
Oh, easily. Yeah, it's. I mean, yes. The answer is it's both a happily less lonely profession. Once Barbara's joined me doing it, I did 9 books on my own. Barbara did 2 books on her own, and the rest of the 48, minus those 11, were done together. And the 11 that we did together were more fun because writing is a pretty lonely profession. But yeah, happily, none of them were, huge bestsellers. So it's volume in order to make a living. But
well, wait a minute. That also brings up the question of: do you make the living off royalties or from advances, or how do you guys live in New York? With the expenses and everything that New York entails, and survive and eat and have good times.
Well, we wrote pretty successfully. I mean, a number of the books did quite well. We had had one book that had, I think, 17 printings.
Oh.
It was and that one brought us a lot of royalties. We had books, celebrity biographies that we've written that were serialized and brought in money. It was sold overseas. And foreign presses picked them up, so we got royalties from that. So between the advances and the royalties, and writing fast, because you can't take 11 years to write a book and make a living doing it. So we're fast writers, and one with flowing, we always had books under contract to follow the ones that we had. But at a certain point, when we started being critics, it was more fun being critics and going out.
And you make so much money as a theater critic.
Well, I often joke that every decision that we've made in our careers, going from being book writers to being theater critics to being theater producers, has brought us less and less of an income. The next thing is to be poets, I think. But but we love what we do, and we find a way to make it work financially to keep it going. But it is hard. When you're working in the arts in New York City, it is a hard road to hoe. But we do the best we can. We've been self-employed doing this for since the mid to late 80s. Mid to late 80s.
Yeah. Well, Mazel McGlick on that. So, but now I'm assuming that you don't just do the Broadway by the Year concerts. I think you're sort of like Neil Berg. You put together lots of different kinds of concerts all over the place. And that should be a pretty decent, steady, which is the most important thing, actually, the steady and decent income for you by now. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, the Broadway by the Year is 4 concerts. We do a show also at Town Hall called Broadway's Rising Stars that'll have its 14th annual event in July. We do it every July, where we introduce people coming out of performing arts schools from all over the country and launch them in a kind of national showcase into their careers. Among the people who've come out of that are Ali Stroker, who won the Tony Award last year from Oklahoma. The girl in the wheelchair is usually how people remember her. But she was a rising star that we launched her career. There were 3 of our guys who were in the original cast of Hamilton. And then when it was on Broadway, we had 3 in the original cast of Beautiful when it opened on Broadway. Across the board, lots and lots of shows. I could go chapter and verse with that. We're going to have a movie star in our among our alumni come this summer. One guy, Anthony Ramos, who you could have seen in the Oscars. He was the guy who did the shout out to Lin-Manuel Miranda. And he's going to be starring as Usnabe in the Heights, the movie of In the Heights. That opens this summer, and he was one of our rising stars, and he's going to be huge. He was in A Star Is Born as a featured player.
Oh wow! Okay.
This last year. So anyway, that's this summer. So we do that every year, and now I do about 5 shows a month on average at Feinstein 54 Below that I produce, write, and host, and direct. In fact, I have one of them tonight. I'm doing a Sinatra show that we do twice a month there. It's called Frank Sinatra, The Second Century, and that's tonight at 9:30. It'll be the 35th edition of that show that we've done. And I do another show twice a month called 54 Sings Broadway's Greatest Hits. And when we do the next one of that, which will be next Saturday, the 29th, the Leap Day, at 9:30 at 54 Below, that'll be the 60th edition of that show that we'll be doing. So to answer your question, yes, the steadiness comes from there where I do that. And I've also, and speaking of being a rabbi, I also do shows periodically at Temple Emmanuel Stryker Center. And we've done 2 editions of Jewish Broadway. We've done the Jewish Oscars. We've done the Jewish Tony Awards.
Jewish ice-capades. We need Jewish ice-capades. This is exciting. But let me ask you, how do you have time to write now? If you are coordinating all these things, right, and then you have to just make a zillion phone calls and emails to plan and book and make sure this actor can show up and the band is this and that and the contracts and everything else and the insurance. How do you have time to still write? Or do you?
Well, we do. We write columns for a website, and as a regular, it's called the Siegel column that we write, and so we do that. Not wildly often, but we do keep our foot in on that, and we're members of the Outer Critics. So we're voting on winners and all that stuff too. But the book writing has stopped. We did a second edition of the Encyclopedia of Hollywood, and it was funny because the editor called up and said, we'd like a new edition. I said, are you kidding? I've never said this as an author. I said, why do you want another? Everything is online. Why do you want to do that? Basically, it's because they wanted to have a new edition that they could put online. So with that, we would end up doing the research so that they would have an online presence. But that was the last thing that we did, was the second edition of the Encyclopedia of Hollywood. So the book, it's sort of like we've been there, done that. I don't think I really need to do that anymore. And the criticism and the writing, we enjoy doing. It's fun. We still go to the theater. We still want to write about it and have our opinions out there. But otherwise, it really is a full-time job doing the producing, because we literally have at least one show every week somewhere, if not two. So it's like, for instance, we have the Saturday night tonight, the Sinatra, and then Monday the Broadway by the Year, and then throughout. And we're booked with shows through next October.
So when you did the first Broadway by the Year, Scott Siegel, when you did that first, was it at Town Hall, or was it in a much smaller venue, or where was it?
No, I know. It was at Town Hall. I mean, I started out at the 1,500-seat theater doing my first show, which is nuts. And that happened because I was doing a film class. It was actually the biggest film class in New York, because Town Hall was so large. We had about 700 people in the film class, and the people running Town Hall were aware of the fact that I was a theater person and a movie person, all that, as well as and a movie person. And they just, at that particular time, Town Hall was doing opera. They were doing third world music. They were doing a lot of jazz. But they were on 43rd Street in the time, in the theater district, but they had no real theater presence in their programming, and they wanted to have it. And they asked me to come in for a meeting, see if I had any ideas. And I suggested the idea for Broadway by the Year. And it's such a great idea. Why don't you do it? And I said, well, listen, I got to tell you the truth. I've never produced anything at all, not even a puppet show in the backyard for my parents. I haven't done anything, like that. But they said, generous as they were, they said, we see how you are with an audience, with our film class. You're a smart guy. It's your idea. Why don't you do it for us? So they gave me the opportunity to do it, and I'll never forget the first one. It was the first two were an experiment, and they had a series called Not Just Jazz, where it was sort of a potpourri of different kinds of things in addition to jazz. And we were doing the Broadway musicals of 1943 was the experimental show to see if this would work. Yeah. And I only had three people in it, and a piano player, the same Ross Patterson, the musical director for all 20 years now of Broadway by the Year. He's been with us the entire time, bless his heart, and a bass player. So it was just five people and me, and I hired Jason Gra, Heather McRae, and Sally Mays were the three people who I chose to be in this.
Can I just break in and mention that both Jason Gra and Sally Mays are friends of the neighborhood. They've been on this program. So you've got good taste in people, I got to tell you.
Well, thank you. I like to think that that's been one of the keys to the success of the series, has been that talent picking. But
so you got them. You got those three performers. You got the pianist and the bass player. Yeah.
And the format, while the show, to on Monday night is going to have 43 people in it, and it's evolved to include dance and a chorus and all sorts of other stuff. That's really a show more than just a concert. Over all these years, it's developed in different stages along the way. But that first show, I was going on stage because the format, even from that 3 performers to 43 performers, the format has essentially always been the same, just variations on it, with me going out and introducing everything and hosting it and talking about the history of Broadway, in addition to setting up each individual song. So I'd never done that before, and I'm not a performer. I never aspired to be one, but I just thought this was a nice format for it, because I am a little bit of a ham. So
what Jew isn't? Yeah.
Secretly, but 5 minutes before the show, I peeked out into the house from the stage left, and I saw it was a pretty good house. It was pretty full, and I started to shake and quiver. I became terrified because I had stage fright.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't go out there like that. I was literally shaking. I mean, it was like a 9 on the Richter scale, and I had to talk to myself out of it and say, you can't go out there like that. And I said, well, how am I gonna do it? And basically, I just said, it's not about me. I hired these great people. And people are coming to see them. They don't even know who I am. And it's great music, and they're great talents, and that's who they're coming to see. And I just took myself out of the equation, and I calmed down, and I've never been nervous since, because I never think it's about me. And it
isn't even necessarily about the folks, because you always get good people, but it's about the title. You have a high concept idea. Broadway by the year, come here. Talented people do. So whether it's Tova Felcher or Jason Grau or Sally Mays or Brent Barrett or whoever else you've had over the years, it's like people are coming for that idea and knowing that they're going to get a quality show under that idea.
Initially, yes.
Yeah.
Initially, yes. I think it was the idea. It sparked people's interest. It was a different kind of way to approach nostalgia, if you will, and their love of Broadway music. And that first show, we did a good job. It was a fun show, and it worked. And then the second show in that experiment, the New York Times came to it, shockingly, and Stephen Holden, the New York Times, and he reviewed the show. It wasn't a money review, but it was a positive review, and it was enough for Town Hall to say, "Hey, we've got something here. This is really good." And then more people came. It was pretty full. So they decided, let's make a series out of it. And I said to them, okay, if we're going to make a series out of it, let's give it a name and let it be separate from all that, the jazz
and other
jazz show. Yeah. And so I came up with the name Broadway by the Year. So the second year we had the name Broadway by the Year, and we had subscriptions separate to that. So we had subscription audience. And the New York Times, Stephen Holden came to the first show of that one, and that was a money review. It was a all-out raise, and from there the subscriptions sailed, and we've had a real core audience. In fact, after the 17th season, Town Hall decided to have a party for the original subscribers, not really knowing how many we had. And it turned out we had almost 200 original subscribers after 17 years who had been with us from the very beginning. And it's sort of like being having season tickets to the New York Giants. People don't want to give up their seats.
Well, yeah,
and they give them to their children, and they won't, because when they come for the concert, it's like they know who's sitting around them. They know everybody. It's like a little camp, for Broadway lovers coming, and there are of course many more people who would join, as subsequent subscribers over the years and survivors. Yeah. And it's been it's a real family of people, because it's not something tourists come to because they don't know about it. It's real theater lovers. It's an insider kind of thing. So that we could do something like I mentioned with Max von Essen singing a song from Dance of the Vampires, and say, "Oh, that's cool," as opposed to "What the hell is that?" So
it's an in-the-know crowd, and this is an in-the-know crowd, but the place is pretty big. What is it? Is it 1,100 seats? Is it how many seats is Town Hall? Huh?
1,500.
1,500 is like bigger than the biggest Broadway theater at this point, and you fill it. Well, Gershwin's bigger,
but it's among the biggest. It is among the biggest. It's not a Broadway house, but the expression "there isn't a bad seat in the house" was actually coined for Town Hall. It was the first theater of its size designed without any visual obstructions. So there are 800 seats downstairs, 700 seats upstairs, and town hall will be 100 years old next year. It's a national landmark now, and it's a very special place to be a part of and be a part of that history. It has a great history, and part of the history, is talking about this history of Broadway by the year and how it connects to Broadway itself. We brought to audiences Stephanie J. Block, who's now a big star.
The Cher Show, yeah.
Her first the Cher Show, this was her second time. She had a Tony Award for that, but she'd been Tony nominated before, dropped Best nominated. But she had her first job in New York at Broadway by the year. And Jessie Mueller, her first job after the debacle that was she was in oh gosh, what's the title? It's escaping me.
Was it a Wild Horn musical, or what was it?
It was a musical with with that long title from 1960.
Wait, 1960s? Jessie Mueller? What?
No, that was a revival. It was a revival. I can't. Anyway, I'm sure everybody listening will know what I'm talking about, and I can't because I can't think of it at the moment. But anyway, she was in it, and she got a lot of great attention. But we had her in her first job after that show in Broadway by the year,
and of course before the Carole King musical, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, well before that. What I'm saying is we helped put a lot of people on the map. People like Nancy Anderson was in it all the time, became very well known through it. Noah Racy after Never Gonna Dance.
Yeah, I mean the roll call is extraordinary. I mean, exceptional. But as a matter of fact, that leads to an interesting question now. Now that your Broadway by the year is so entrenched and it's a hot ticket, and you do it 4 times a year, and everybody, I assume, in the theater and cabaret community wants to be a part of it. How do you decide to get the 4 or 5 or 6 or 48 people on a particular show? Because now it's not just, oh, could you please do this, and here's what we're paying, and would you come in? Now it's sort of like, well, there'll be hurt feelings if you don't ask this particular person. Or they'll, hey, come on, why didn't you ask me? How do you choose time to time whom you're going to pick?
Well, it's often just a question of availability. Everybody would like to do it if they're free to do it, so it's somebody who's starring in a show 8 times a week, and their Monday off is very precious to them. They don't always like. For instance, there were a lot of people, Sutton Foster, who we wanted to get right away. She wouldn't do it while she was in Thoroughly Modern Billy, but as soon as Thoroughly Modern Billy was over, she came and did it. So it's like that. But my favorite story about getting first was, right, I mentioned Jason Gra. He was in the very first one. And I mentioned that only because I wanted to get Liz Calloway to be in Broadway by the year. And I went to see her. She was doing a show at Joe's Pub, and I went backstage to ask her after the performance if she would do Broadway by the year. But before I could ask her, she said, oh, my friend Jason Gra was just in this thing you did at Town Hall, and it sounded like so much fun. Can I do it? So
that's the way it works.
When they ask you, right.
Do you ever try and match? Do you ever know, hey, I know that my next one is going to be from, 1970. So we know we're going to be doing a song or two from Company. And do you ever think, wouldn't it be great to get this person to do another 100 people? Do you ever think like that?
Of course, yeah.
Oh,
for instance, in the next Broadway by the year, when we're doing 2005 to 2009, Ragtime was revived during that time, and Quentin Earl Darrington, who played Olaf Walker, was in it, and he's going to be in it. So I tried to pinpoint him to be in that one, and he's going to be in that one. So yeah, we try to get match it up as much as we can. The real key, one of the real keys to the success of the series and the stuff they do at 54 Below and everywhere else is simply matching singer to song. So you have the right people singing the right music, so that you're not doing stupid stuff on stage, which I've often seen. It was one of the things I learned I'm not going to say where I saw it, but there were so many times I would see in these one night off concerts in different venues where they would have people do things that they were not supposed to do. It's not what they're what they were great at, and they would have them do these other things. I said, well, people should do what they're best at. Let them do what they excel at, or something that they never get a chance to do that they're really good at, like having a comedian, some kind of like Eddie Corbett, who's a great dramatic actor but doesn't get a chance to do it, to have a chance to do a ballad, and knock it out of the park. So it's that combination of letting people do what they really can do and do it well.
Well, all I'm saying is when it comes time for the year, I'm not sure if it was 67 or what year it was, but if you're going to be bringing back the Zulu and the Zeta, and you need the man to do the way of the world, the tears of the world, this is your guy. Yeah, just give me a call. I've been practicing for years. Lou, 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 it's the way of the world. See, I got it. I'm an ex-Menashe Skolnick. You know it. Or I could do the Lou Gossett Jr. parts too. I'm very flexible that way.
You're very versatile. I can see that.
Now we're speaking with SCOTT Siegel. He is, of course, the entrepreneur who is putting together, as we said, not just the Broadway by the Year that's taking place on Monday night at Town Hall, but he's doing a Sinatra show tonight. What's the one tonight?
Sinatra tonight at 9:30 at 54 Feinstein's 54 Below,
Yeah.
and then the first of our four Broadway by the Year concerts on Monday night at 8 o'clock at Town Hall. And the nice thing about Town Hall is, Broadway is so expensive now that Town Hall being the people's hall, it's always been a very progressive place that's there for the community, and this is a town hall presentation. It's not a rental. They keep the prices very reasonable, and you can see this full concert with. We're going to have 26 tap dancers in our opening number, and Town Hall has never had an assemblage of tap dancers of this size to do that.
You may have to replace the floor. Yeah.
Well, yes, they will have to do some work on the floor afterward. I've been told, because it will scratch it up a bit. But it's going to be an incredible opening number for our 20th season, and the tickets are like $55, $60. You're going to get them for less. And for this full concert with Broadway stars like Tova Felcher, like Max von Essen, and many more who are in this. We have a fabulous cast. Danny Gardner is in the show. He was in Dames at Sea. He's going to be choreographing and leading the dance numbers. We have everything from the producers to number in it to Moving Out, Billy Joel musical to all sorts. I mean, it's such an interesting mix of music from so many different kinds of shows that it'll be a little bit like the weather in the Midwest. If you don't like it, wait 5 minutes, it'll change. So.
And by the way, I want to let people know that if they want to follow you and go to more than just the 4 Town Hall subscription series that you do at Broadway by the Year, but follow the other things that you and Barbara put together and do these other concerts all over the place. The website is SiegelPresents.com, and it's Siegel, SIEGEL, presents.com. So bookmark it on your computers so that maybe if you can't go tonight or it's already sold out, Monday night, or you can't do some of these other things, there'll be something that they are doing that you're going to want to check out, be it at 54 Below, be it at Town Hall, so they can follow your stuff. SiegelPresents.com. So let me ask you just a couple of quick more questions here with SCOTT Siegel. And you probably don't want to answer this question, but if you had to pick your favorite musical of all time, what would it be?
No, I don't mind doing that because it's always, I think, the same for everybody. It's the one that hooked them on the theater in the first place that made them want to go back and try to get that feeling again every time they go. And every now and then you get it, but mostly you don't. But it was Man of La Mancha. I mean, that just, it just spoke to me, and it was so thrilling to watch. And so it's sort of like Bosco, it's the thing you had when you were a kid that you remember forever, and you love it forever.
Even though You Bet is better. But yeah, so also, then I want to ask in terms of, because you, by what you're doing, I mean, Broadway doesn't eat your head. Broadway's making zillions of dollars now, but you're also doing what is essentially a small cabaret, duplex 88's, Rose's Turn kind of thing that's just gone on to a grand scale. How would you What would be your ideas to help save and nurture cabaret in New York? Because it's not, it has certain places where it can be done, but not a lot at this point.
Well, the nightclub world has always had its ups and downs, and we've been following it from, you mentioned 88. I mean, 88 was our favorite club of all time, and we used to go there. We were there the night it closed. The lights when Ellie came to say goodbye to. But it was. It has its ups and downs. It changes all the time. I'm sort of in the middle place now because Green Room 42 is doing pretty well, and I think they just expanded and opened a second room further downtown. And I'll be doing shows there. A belting show once a month starting in April, May, and June. I'll have one show a month there. So they're to nurture it. I mean, the nice thing about the nightclub stuff is that you don't need a lot of money to do it, especially if you're doing it in a smaller place as a performer, as an entertainer. And it's a great way to as Herb Rabel used to run the 88s, say when you do a cabaret show, you're the star of it, and and there are no chorus people in cabaret. Everybody's a star because you've got to hold stage for an hour, and it's a great training ground for performers. And hopefully, some places are more expensive. Cafe Carlisle and 54 Below is expensive, so it's harder to go see that unless you're saving up or it's a birthday or something. But otherwise, places like Don't Tell Mama and the Duplex are really inexpensive to go. They're less than a movie, really, these days. And it's a great place to see and nurture talent on the way up. And we continue to go to those places and look for talent also, and try to help people make the transition from theater to cabaret. Or very often, what we really do at 54 Below a lot is take theater people who are working in the theater all the time, but are in between shows, and we give them a place to show the flag and say, "Hey, here I am. This is me, and this is what I can do." And
actually, let me ask you also about posting your own flag, because back in the day when Broadway by the Year was first starting, you guys used to be outside Broadway theaters handing out flyers to get people to come to the show. Now the show kind of sells itself between word of mouth and everybody with subscriptions. But how do you still, if you publicize what you do, what do you now do a lot of social media? How do you get people to come to the other things that aren't Broadway by the Year?
Yeah, I mean, look, no, you have to do it for Broadway by the Year too. I mean, I would like to not get the impression that you can't get into Broadway by the Year. Oh. You have to have a subscription. We sell half the houses is single ticket buyers, people who are just coming to one show or coming that night and trying it out, or they can't make all the shows, so they come when they can. So by all means, if you want to just come and try it out, don't feel that it's a subscription sellout thing. It's not. We have room for people to come, so please come on Monday.
Great.
But the same thing, yes. But social media has sort of replaced the flyering. You mentioned the New York Times article about me about this time last year, and another time I was written up in the Times was exactly as sort of being the flyer king, flyering.
Well, it was a brilliant idea. You stand outside people coming out of a Broadway musical, and you say, "Hey, if you like this kind of thing, we're doing this at Town Hall. Come see it." I mean, it was genius.
I developed quite a lot of lung power. In the beginning when I started doing this, I could barely do it because I'm not. My voice was not trained to shout and bark. But I learned how to do it, and I did it all seasons, all the time, in all kinds of weather. And my favorite story of that, I was flyering the New York City Pops at Carnegie Hall, and it was raining, snowing, sleeting, blowing. It was the worst night of weather imaginable, and I was out in front, and the people who were running wouldn't let me stay under the overhang, some rule that they had, which was very annoying. But I'm out there in this wind-swept, cold sweat. It was horrible. So I'm out there and flying foot. But I always go to these things so that I'm there at the beginning, and then I would run out during the applause at the end, so I'd be in places people came out to fly again. So the thing is over, and I get out there, and I'm out there again, and this guy comes out, and he says, oh my God, you're out here. And when I saw you coming in and going out, what's your name? What are you doing? And I gave him my name and my address. He sent me a check for $1,000. He was so impressed that I was out there in that weather flyering. And then you talk about how you make a living. You need the support of strangers and the kindness of strangers in order to get through it and get some support like that. But
the thing is, it didn't necessarily work for me because I would stand out on Saturday mornings outside temples and tell people, hey, do you want a bris? I mean, I'm off of them. I have a little van and a table and some sterilizing equipment, and I was doing and I got maybe 3 takers. It did not work out.
Surprised you got 3. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I need a little business plan, though. It didn't really work so. So the last question that I have for the delightful Scott Siegel, and I also want to remind people one more time, A, that they can go to the website siegelpresents.com to track all the things that you and Barbara are doing, including Broadway by the Year. B, even though I make it sound like, oh, you can never get tickets, it's all sold out, there are tickets available for this Broadway by the Year on Monday night at Town Hall. Plus, you'll be doing one a few weeks later and a few weeks after that, too. So, you can go see it. Are there subscriptions still available? Can people still subscribe, or is that over?
Yes, you can still get subscriptions. And you can get those through Ticketmaster or by calling Town Hall and telling them you want a subscription. They'll direct you to the right person, who's Helen Morris, who works there, who handles subscriptions. And yes, you can still subscribe. And even after the first one, you can create a subscription for free and do that. And that's the best way to go because you get the best seats and you get a little bit of the savings as well. We always like to save a little money, don't we?
You're talking to a Jew. Of course we do. Yes. So my last question for you, Scott, is, second to last. First, penultimate question, what is your Hebrew name?
Menachem.
Menachem! How the hell did we get from Menachem to Scott? How does that work?
I don't know, because my Spanish name in Spanish class was Pepe. That didn't work either.
Makes no sense at all. I don't know. But let's say that it's not from Man of La Mancha. Let's say that, aside from Man of La Mancha, what would be your favorite song of all time?
Oh, that I can't do. I can't do my favorite song. There are too many that I love. I love too many songs.
Okay.
And it changes all the time. There are things that I love in different contexts. So I couldn't go there. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I should have kept that one as the penultimate one and found out Menachem on this one. Well, anyway, either way, it has been joyful talking music, talking theater, talking entrepreneurship with Scott Siegel. It just remains, well, I'll call you Menachem. Menachem, is it Menachem or Menashe? Wait, Menachem. I just wish you, Pepe. You know Dave is going to call you that from now on. You realize that. When you see him at the theater, that's all he's ever going to call you. He's going to say, oh my God, let me show you my Pepe. He's right here. But Menachem, Pepe, it's been delightful having you in the neighborhood. We wish you so much success and continued growth and marvelous music and good times with Broadway by the Year and all your concerts, and love, of course, to your darling wife, Barbara, as well. And shalom to you.
Shalom. I appreciate it. And I'll see you soon, I hope.
You got it. Bye-bye now. Shalom.
Bye-bye.